Hi, it's Therese from Lostinpaper, and I'm here as a Fetti friend for reverse confetti, and I'm going to play with the August sketch for you to try. And I am going to be using this set, which is called No Tomorrow, which is a great name, for this prehistoric set, and I've got the matching dies as well. So I'm starting by working on a panel of cardstock that's cut the same size as the front of my card, and I wanted to create sort of a sunset scene behind the elements of the sketch. And to do this I'm using some pigment inks. Now dye inks wouldn't work the same as this because they soak into the paper, so that's why I've chosen to use some pigment inks, because the ink sits on top of the paper and you get a more vivid colour. And I'm just using a little cheap yellow sponge that I've cut into wedges to apply the colour. It's nothing too fancy happening here. Alright, now I'm going to stamp out my images, and I'm using my Misty so that I can restamp them after I colour them. This is one of the habits that I've started doing more recently, just to give a nice bold outline. I'm not very good at drawing lines on top of stamped lines. It makes me nervous after I've done all the colouring, so I find it a much better process to do it this way. Alright, I'm doing some simple colouring today because this is kind of, you know, like it's a kid's card really, but it could also be used for some men. I know some men that I could use it for. So of course I'm going to leave all the colours off to the side, and I'll leave you with the colouring and be back when all of that is done. So my first stamp I actually did use some Memento Tuxedo Black, which is an alcohol marker friendly ink, and this time when I've done the second layer of stamping I am actually using a pigment ink, which is the Onyx Black, which gives a nice bold outline. I like to line up all my images. I made sure that I stamped them far enough apart that I could just run this all through my die cutting machine in one foul swoop to save the RSI in my wrist and fingers. Arthritis, you know how it goes. Time saving technique here. And then I can just pop all my dies, my die cuts out of my dies, and I am actually keeping all my dies in together at the moment because I had a little mishap the other day and lost one of my dies. I just spent the next, it felt like hours. I know it wasn't. I did find it, so now I'm being a little bit more cautious again. You know how it goes. So now I'm following the sketch again, and the background element, I decided to make it a mountain. And to do this I'm using a Copic multiliner and just drawing it myself. I'm holding the T-Rex in place just so that I get the mountain kind of the right proportion for the sketch as well as for my little dinosaur. I'm doing some really simple shading here. I've got the W4 marker and I do blend it out with the W0, and that seems to work well on the coloured cardstock. It's not really made for Copics, so you'll find that the colours do lighten as they dry, but it's only a background element. It doesn't have to be too fancy. I come in with the W7 just to add some details to the rocks and just make them look a little bit more prehistoric. Now, because I couldn't leave the white border because it's coloured cardstock, I decided to cut the image out right up to the very edge. And when I do this, I also like to take like a black marker and just run it around the edge of the cut border, and it just gives it a more finished look. Now I'm taking the sentiment from the same stamp set. I just love this sentiment. It's fun, isn't it? Perfect for a prehistoric dinosaur stamp set. Focus. I just stamped that in some grey ink and cutting down the panel. This has also come from the sketch, and I thought this little panel on the sketch would make the perfect place for the sentiment. I decided to ground my mountain and just working out where the placement's going to be. And if you notice, it also has these three sort of dots off to the side, and I thought that'd be a fun place to add some, they're not paw prints, footprints, I suppose. And I did colour them with some Prismacolor pencils, and these work really well on coloured cardstock because the colour sits on top. And this is just in some similar colours to the mountain. I just chose colours that were going to blend in and not sort of stand out too much. Okay, now I'm going to start putting my card together. I've added some adhesive to my panel and it's looking a bit daggy at the moment, but don't worry, we'll get there. We'll put all our elements together and it'll look awesome. I've popped up the mountain on some fun foam, and I've used quite a bit of fun foam because it is not as heavy cardstock, this coloured cardstock, so that's just going to help give it support. And I've also popped up the sentiment, and I can just flip the panel over and cut the edge off. I'm using my dotted adhesive to add the little greenery that I coloured and die cut as well, and then I will pop up my little T-Rex, and that's my finished card. I've had a blast playing with this sketch for you to try from Reverse Confetti, and I have had so much fun creating my scene. So till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.